On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I make the time just after 3 o'clock p.m. It is November 14th, our council meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone here this afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk, for that. Again, just like to remind everyone, we're televised, we're web streamed. If you have one of these gadgets, a cell phone, and if it's going to make a noise, if you could silence it, that would be appreciated so as to not interrupt our meeting. Mr. Bill Jackson, again this afternoon and this evening, is our camera person. He is volunteering again to assist with the broadcast. Mr. Jackson, thank you very much again for all of your work. To begin with, we have a ceremonial activity that I'm going to ask in a moment our county manager to conduct, and this activity is to recognize the years of service that some of our long-standing members of council have put in. I can speak from experience in relaying to you that being a council member is not always a job where we sometimes get a lot of thanks, and I think that's true in a lot of things that people work at. Sometimes it can be a tough job serving the public. However, it is one that I can tell you we elected officials pride ourselves on. Certainly giving voice to the residents of this great county of Norfolk is a noble enterprise, in my opinion, and I would ask the county manager if he would come forward and we would recognize at this time some of the years of service by some of the members of this council. Thank you, Mr. Cribbs.
A few times every year, I get asked to make public remarks, and usually, or not infrequently, I'm also asked to speak a little bit about the principle of public service. And I do so, and I always do so from the perspective of the civil service, of those of us who are employed here full-time and work in this fishbowl we call a municipality. And I say things like, it's a privilege, and I believe that. I do just fine on the lie detector test. I say it's nice to be able to put your talents and your efforts towards making the community you serve a better place. I think it feels good that you kind of moved forward in whatever it is you're working on. And all those things I say, while they're true and I believe them, they're all from the staff perspective. And when you get over to the perspective of the elected official, it's the same, but sort of on steroids. We occasionally take some abuse. You take legions more. We occasionally get compliments. You get legions more. Everything is sort of magnified because you voluntarily put yourselves out there in a competitive process that, to get elected, that frankly is obviously adversarial. And then the reward is a lot of work and frankly, very little money. You only would do this if you actually really wanted to serve the community. We were looking at doing our own staff awards each year for long service. And for the record, as I read out some names, we sort of go in 5-year intervals. So in the event you're not on a 5-year interval, we also round down. So it's not that we're bad at math. You all have various levels of service, but you'll notice there are things like 10s and 15s and 20s kind of deal. So to that end, and in no particular order to which I mix these up, if we could have Mr. John Wells, which says here 15 years of continuous service. Just want to say thank you. Congratulations, sir.
Will the check be coming soon?
Yes, every other week. And we have Mr. James Oliver. It says here 10 years of continuous service. Thank you very much. And Mr. Peter Black, 10 years of continuous service. Thank you, sir. Mr. Charles Luke, 15 years of continuous service. Mr. Michael Columbus, 15 years of continuous service. Mr. Harold Sonnenberg, 15 years of continuous service. Leave that off. Thank you. No, thank you, sir. And last but not least, Mr. Roger Geisens, 15 years of continuous service.
Thank you.
Thanks for not mocking the guy with 7 months for giving you awards for decades. But got my 7 beat handily, sir. Thank you and congratulations.
And thank you, County Manager, Mr. Cribbs, for those presentations. I note that item 2, we have no changes in the agenda today. I have a motion before me to approve the agenda as it is presented in front of you, moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Brunton, that the agenda be approved as presented. Those in favor? That is carried. We'll proceed with the agenda as it is outlined in front of us. Councillor Columbus, I do note that last week you declared a conflict of interest in the Committee of Council minutes, item 14, so we certainly have recorded that this evening, that you have made that and you will abstain from voting on the matter. Are there any other further declarations of peculiar interest to declare? Councillor Height, please.
16A, Mayor Luke.
I'm sorry?
16A.
So you're declaring a conflict on 16A Hastings Drive OMB related direction, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. That is noted. Anything further? I'm going to proceed with one deputation that we will hear in a moment, scheduled for 3 o'clock. I note that we also have a scheduled deputation for 4 o'clock. And of course, we have a public meeting on 4 planning applications scheduled for 5. So in between those deputations and public meeting, we'll just be chugging along with the agenda. This first deputation is from Mary Cahill. It's concerning staff report PW 17-84, titled Bridge Projects. This is a matter that has been, as it relates to a previous November the 7th minutes, which relate to this topic. Mary, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Do you
Good to
know
see
my
everybody.
rules on deputations? I should say our rules.
Yes,
10 minutes and in roughly 9 minutes, I would just give you an indication
that's fine.
that you
Hopefully,
can wind it up, okay?
hopefully I'll be quick, much quicker than that.
You have 10 minutes. It's the
Well,
floor
there
is
you go.
yours. Thank you and welcome.
All right. So for those of you, I've been here before, not in a deputation, but for other reasons, so you know me as the chair of the Heritage Committee. So just a quick review. As a committee of council, our mission, and this is right out of our terms of reference, is to advise, assist council in identifying, protecting, and promoting heritage resources in Norfolk County. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So that's why I'm here. Last Thursday, I'm at home doing, and I got an email about 8:30 asking me if the Concession A Bridge was a pony truss. And I went, what? Anyway, so I reviewed the agenda, pulled off the staff report PW 1784 to read it, and then to understand the reason for the question. So, to answer the question, both the Concession A Bridge, which was built in 1912, and the Windham Road 19 Bridge, which was built in 1930, are in fact Warren Pony Truss bridges. So it's a specific type of bridge with halfway through trusses, and it gets very technical, concrete abutments and wood decking, and they're among the oldest forms of modern bridges. So, because of their age, because they're both these two, so I'm not speaking, just as an aside, I'm not speaking to the Walsingham pontoon bridge. I'm just speaking to the two, Concession A and the Windham Road 19 bridge. So, because of their age, provincial legislation required that both bridges be subjected to cultural heritage assessment reports as part of the environmental assessment for both of the projects. So the heritage assessments were carried out and became part of the completed environmental assessment for these two bridges. They were then advertised in the newspaper in April of 2017. I think they brought a memo about them back in November of 2016. But in 2017, they advertised them in the newspaper for public comment. Okay? So I printed off copies of those heritage assessments for our committee because a lot of our committee people are new and weren't perhaps familiar with the whole issue around the pony truss bridges. So for us to all have a look at so that we knew what was going on. So we did our due diligence. We went out and visited the sites one more time. And then we came back and we had at our meeting, just to summarize, the heritage assessment recommendations for both bridges were as follows: that the cultural heritage landscape of each bridge was significant enough to warrant retention of the bridges. Any remedial work would need input from a heritage professional. Removal and/or replacement were the least favored option, and that was according to the heritage assessment. Now, as you probably realize, those recommendations were in direct conflict with the consultant's preferred solutions of removal and/or replacement. So the committee then agreed to send 2 letters in support of these cultural heritage assessments, and one for Concession A Bridge in Walsingham and one for Windham Road 19 Bridge. We sent them in, submitted them. and sent them in by the deadline. So during the summer, I heard nothing more. During the summer, I received an email advising me that the consultant was proceeding with heritage impact assessments on the two bridges. Now, the heritage impact assessments were received 2 weeks ago approximately. Copies of those impact assessments were received approximately 2 weeks ago by the Heritage Department, and it was recommended that that be done so by the author of the reports. So, as of last Tuesday, I had not had an opportunity to read those reports. I've since done so. And the recommendations of the heritage impact assessments were as follows. Regarding concession A, bridge, based upon the evaluation outlined in the table below, option 2A, which is road closure and retention of the existing bridge, is favored from a heritage perspective, as it has no impact on the heritage value of the structure. So to just leave it there, close the road, leave it there, that's going to have no impact on the heritage value. However, the consultants, they call it an OSIM report, says that the bridge is too deteriorated for meaningful and sympathetic rehabilitation of the bridge's heritage elements. As a result, I'm still sort of summarizing from the the report. Option 2A cannot be considered a viable option. Instead, option 2B, which is removal, is recommended. All right? Now, regarding Windham Road 19, again, option 2A, which is the road closure and retention of the bridge, is favored from a heritage perspective for the same reasons. Again, the consultant's OSIM report says that the bridge is too deteriorated. Therefore, for that reason, they opted for option 4 in this case, which was to replace the structure. So we're removing concession, they recommend removing concession A and replacing the Windham Road 19. So, this brings us to the staff report that was submitted last week. The recommendations in the staff report on bridge projects Class EA status clearly ask that the report be received and that the council direct staff to proceed with the detailed design and construction. So, at this crucial time, I'm suggesting to you, so now this is the meat of it. I'm suggesting to you that there is enough consensus among heritage professionals regarding the heritage value of these two bridges to warrant considering other options or even compromises, rather than the removal, as in the case of concession A, or the removal and replacement, as in the case of Windham Road 19. Yes, they appear to be in poor enough condition to warrant them not being used for vehicular traffic. I don't think there's any question of that, as indicated in the structural reports. Excuse me. But in conclusion, I ask you to consider the following. If we are in fact at the design phase, and if you are committed to building new bridges at either of these two sites, that you might consider having the new bridges resited somewhat, like the areas are large enough, so that the old bridges can be left for the enjoyment of the public as walkways or viewing areas or bike paths. These two sites are both wonderful natural spaces, if you've ever been down there, that could be used and enjoyed by the public. And there is a precedence for it. I'm not sure whether you're aware of it, but the precedence is the old Bloomsburg Bridge out on the old Highway 24. The newer road was shifted over so that 1850 stone bridge, which could be left, it remains there today. It's one of our designated properties. But incidentally, the local residents use it as a pathway so they don't have to walk on the highway. So basically that's it. That's all I had to say. I'll take any questions if anybody has anything. It was just more to sort of give you, I know you have a lot on your plate, but just to give you something else to think about.
Thank you very much, Mary, for bringing forward that information. Questions to our deputation, Councillor Columbus, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mary, how many pony truss bridges are there in the county of Norfolk?
I would be guessing, okay?
There's more than these two.
Oh, yes, there's Troyer, which is closed. There is Hazen, which is closed. The Porter, I don't know whether it's been torn down yet. Is it still open? Well, I know for a fact bicyclists use that one because I was out there one time looking at it, and the bicycles were going across it. So it's still, but it's closed. I think that's pretty well it. Now, we could even, the Troyer, and both the Troyer and the Hazen have been closed like forever. We could do the same thing, we would, use them as trails, bike trails. It was just my suggestion.
Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mary, for your report. I wanted to be sure I was understanding correctly. The Heritage Impact Assessment, which you described, that was commissioned by the county as part of our overall EA process, I'm thinking. First of all, I don't know whether to direct that to you or to
Actually,
Ms. Robinson.
Probably direct, through the chair, probably to,
Okay.
yeah.
Through the Mayor to Council, yes, it was commissioned by the county,
Okay.
by an independent association that does these sorts of
Yes,
things.
okay.
And it's required as part of the class environmental
That's-
assessment, and we certainly have copies of that. And that's the type of thing that would be included for discussion for the report that the current resolution would be bringing forward.
Okay, thank you. That's what I assumed was the case. So then,
Yeah.
I guess I'm slightly puzzled, and that Heritage Impact Assessment relative to the Concession A Bridge recommended that it should be removed.
Yes,
Okay. And yet you're telling us there are heritage experts that feel that's inappropriate.
that's what was rather confusing about the heritage assessment, in that when you read it, he says, yes, option 2, it's got heritage value, hold on to it. But then, because of the information he was given in the structural report, they then changed that option to the 2A, which in the case of the Concession A Bridge was removal. They changed their opinion. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Height?
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Through you to the deputation. Mary, I'm not sure if you said it or not, but what year was the Concession A Bridge built?
1912.
1912, and it has stood there ever since.
Yeah, so the Concession A Bridge is 100 years old.
That was a good deal for taxpayers back then, that's for sure. Now, obviously that design works, and I think through the engineering or the Class EA, it was that the bridge was so deteriorated that it couldn't be restored properly for historic values, is what it was. Now, I'm reading through here, and there's a letter we received a petition with 300 and some signatures. We've also received a letter from the Southwest Walsingham Heritage Association and Mr. Ross Bateman. In that, Mr. Bateman states that the Pioneer Bridge Company builds permanent bridges similar to this. Have you or the Heritage Group looked into that type of stuff to, I don't know, verify that data with him?
No, sir.
No?
I have not. I'm not a bridge specialist.
No?
No. I'm just a lowly heritage person.
Okay.
No, to answer your question.
Okay, yeah, and just to let you know, on both sides of that bridge, it's the same property owner. It would be very hard to leave this bridge in place, even as a pedestrian bridge, because he's not selling, and there are no trails or anything that takes you over there. It's all private property, and you're going across a river with streams and everything else in there. So it really would have to be replaced, I think. But thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions for Mary? Councillor Oliver? I have a motion here, and that's fine, no. Mary, thank you very much for
My
your
pleasure.
time and
Anytime.
bringing that information to us.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Wells and seconded by Councillor Brunton that the deputation of Mary Cahill be received as information. Any discussion? Those in favor? It's carried. I'm now going to go to page 9 of our agenda. It's been moved by Councillor Wells and seconded by Councillor Brunton that the minutes of the council and committee meeting of November the 7th, 2017 be approved as presented with the exception of resolution number 11 and number 12. They are on page 14, and they are the bridge motions, that these two resolutions, 11 and 12, be pulled for further discussion. Any questions on the balance of our minutes from council and committee of last week? Councillor Brunton?
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I'm a little bit confused, and I just wanted to get some clarification. Based on what Mary Cahill is saying, and I guess my question through to
Councillor Brunton, can we wait till I deal the next motion, which is on the bridges?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, then just, I'll entertain any other question, then I'll recognize you when we get to that.
Okay.
I think that relates to the two bridges in question, I believe. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Been moved by Councillor Columbus, second by Councillor Sonnenberg. This is resolution number 11 from last week, November the 7th. First of all, that staff report 1784 on bridge projects be received as information. And secondly, that council directs staff to proceed with the detailed design and construction of Norfolk County Road 45 Bailey Bridge and the Side Road Lot 22 Bridge, as noted in the class environmental assessment project file preferred solution. Now, this is for resolution 11 first. Councillor Brunton, I certainly give you back the floor. Thank you for your patience.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Luke. My question, I guess, through you to Lee is, Lee, I'm trying to, I know what we dealt with when we looked at these budgeted items for these bridges. Am I correct that when you talked replacement, it was not, or I use the word not, to rehab them in their existing heritage state? It would be brand new, am I correct? Construction, or are we talking restoration?
Through the mayor to council, the particular two, not including the concession bridge, because this resolution only deals with the other two, is a combination of replacement of parts of it and rehabilitation of some of it as well. The Class A is recommending effectively some rehab / replacement of parts of the bridge structures. So sometimes the abutments can be left, but the whole deck needs to be removed and replaced and that sort of stuff.
Well, the Wyndham Bridge, for example, is that going to be still a heritage restoration, or would it be new construction? Am I clear on that or no?
Through the mayor to council, as the Heritage Committee, we don't have the ability to do a heritage repair on a bridge, because as soon as we do any kind of significant work, it has to be brought up to the Ontario building, or to the new bridge code, right. And we have to do that. We don't have the ability to just repair it from a heritage perspective. That being said, yeah. Lots of times we're able to preserve heritage aspects of it, because those heritage aspects may not have a structural component. So we do include those sorts of things where we're able to do that, but we do have to do the minimum amount of work required to bring it up to today's bridge code, or we're not allowed to open it to traffic.
So the Wyndham Bridge, the load limit would be?
Removed. By the time we're done, the load limit will be taken off the bridge, yes.
There would still be some?
The heritage aspects of the structures that we're able to preserve, we will be preserving, yes. Okay. We do that on every bridge project that we have.
And the other bridge on 45 is
that's our, yes. But if there's any, I don't believe it's new abutments though. Right. And so in that case, if there's any sort of, anything that's of a heritage value that we can save, we do save through that process, as long as we're able to incorporate that into meeting today's bridge code.
Okay. Clear enough. Thank you.
Councillor Black?
Thank you, Mayor Luke, through you to Lee. Just wondering about what Mary had to say about reciting the Wyndham Bridge. Is that a possibility?
Through the mayor to council, it's something that we look at in every bridge project as part of the design. It depends on the property that we currently have, et cetera. You'll recall that this was just the direction, this resolution is just the direction to staff to implement the preferred solution, which means we haven't done any design work on any of these structures to date, because we have to finish the Class EA and then implement the preferred solution. So we're not permitted through the process to do any kind of design work yet. So different locations, moving things around is always considered as part of the design on any project. So
Okay.
it will definitely be considered as part of this.
Okay, so there'll still be lots of opportunity to discuss like the design and possibly altering it, or
Through the mayor to council, absolutely. This is although council approves a capital project to do something, the class environmental assessment process requires us to complete that to achieve the approvals under the Environmental Protection Act, and then come back and have council direct us to implement the preferred solution. Or if, as we discussed last week, if we choose not to implement the preferred solution, to give staff direction to do something other than that and go through the class environmental assessment process differently. So we're at the point where there is no design work, there's lots of input. We're just at the point where it's almost like approving a capital project, other than the fact in this case the money's already been approved. We haven't done any work on it yet.
okay. And on the Wyndham Bridge, the approaches, like again, Mary asked if anybody's been down there, and I don't know if all the councilors have been there. I'm sure Councilor Columbus has, but it is a beautiful area. And the approaches, it goes down and winds around and crosses the river and back up again. And it really is a beautiful spot. So I know in some of the standards and the design work, would they consider that? I'm afraid bringing it up to any kind of a standard, they'll straighten all that out and remove that beautiful winding road approaches from both sides. So would that be considered?
Through the mayor to council, it's certainly considered, but keeping in mind we do have to comply with the bridge code.
Okay.
That's not discretionary, that's a provincial requirement that if we do that, we have to
Well,
comply with the bridge code.
that certainly will be unfortunate. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Columbus, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Black mentioned that it is a beautiful spot, and it truly is a beautiful spot, for sure. But over the course of the last couple of years, I believe, Lee, this bridge has had a load limit on it for at least 2 years, right?
Through the mayor to council, the load limit predates my time. I don't know exactly when it,
Okay.
and I've been here for 2 years, so it would be at least
Okay.
2 years.
Anyway, I have been getting calls and communication from neighbors and farmers in the area who want that bridge upgraded because they have to drive around a whole concession to get there. They rent land in different places, and they have to drive extra time and put like manpower on the road and burn more fuel to drive around the concession to get to the packing houses. So they would like to see this expedited as soon as possible, and hopefully not to conflict with the harvest season. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Resolution 11? I will call the question. Those in favor? Carried. On to the Concession A Bridge, which is Resolution 12 from last week. This resolution in my hand is exactly as printed on page 14. I have a mover, which is Councillor Height. I will need a seconder to put this on the floor. I now have Councillor Geisens seconded it. Resolution 12, council directs staff that they do not desire to implement the Class A environmental assessments preferred solution to proceed with the permanent closure and removal of the Concession A Bridge, and that council directs staff to prepare a report to consider the option of putting Concession A Bridge back in service. Discussion on this motion. I'll start with Councillor Black. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to support it because, well, let me ask first, if you don't mind.
I don't.
Mayor Luke, through you to Ms. Robinson. Would, not just redoing this bridge, bringing it up to standards, how much work would be involved in the approaches, in the road work?
Through the mayor to council, at this point, it's hard for us to tell because we haven't done any design work on the bridge because obviously we haven't been authorized to proceed with that through the Class EA process. But based on the current conditions in that area, there will be some work required on the approaches. A pony truss bridge structure pony truss bridges were only ever built as a temporary crossing. We've been very fortunate that we've got almost 100 years out of several of them, but they are actually a temporary structure. They were never designed to be a permanent structure. And so, as such, there will be a considerable amount of work, whether we redo, complete, I'm at a little bit of a loss. There's going to be a considerable amount of work no matter which way council chooses to move with this project.
Okay, well, thank you. And Mayor Luke, I'm not going to support the motion on the floor. This bridge has been out of service for some 10 years. It's not really put a lot of people out. It's a minimal effect. If you read the reports from fire, ambulance, it doesn't really change their time that much. It has any large effect. I think the cost of this is going to outweigh the benefits, and I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I will be supporting this, obviously. I've had so many calls over this. Council has received a petition with 300+ signatures on it. There's a church at the other end. There's a lot of people in this area that would like to see this road opened up again. All the families around there have to drive around different concessions just to go to see their kids or relatives and things like that. School buses have to come and back up and go around. Last year we had a fire there. It caused a nightmare as that house ended up burning completely down because our fire trucks could hardly get turned around. One of the other solutions is to put turnarounds on both ends. That's going to add a cost too. So, you know, there is public pressure to open this bridge up. As a matter of fact, Mr. Mayor, the whole Class EA, I've had a lot of calls from people and they were offended that they were never notified that this was even coming to council. So none of them showed up here last week. Had they known it was coming, they would have been here, a whole pile of them, because it is important to them. They do want it opened up. In my ward alone, I think I have 5 bridges that are closed right now. Okay, this particular one, okay, Troyer, Hazen, side roads, right? This particular one, Mr. Mayor, concession A. That's the first of the good roads, right? This isn't what side road, lot 22 bridge. Where is that? This is a real road, a straight through road, and as such requires a real bridge to move real traffic. This bridge has lasted for 105 years, and today we can't rebuild it? Did we pitter away the money, or didn't we know it was coming forward? We've had 105 years to save $8,500 per year with no interest in 105 years to rehabilitate this $900,000 structure that people want, Mr. Mayor. So I would urge council to support this. We will get a report back from staff, and Mr. Mayor, quite frankly, if it's a $300 million or $3 million bridge, I don't know that Councillor Height's going to support it either, but I would at least like to look at options and have the public have a chance to have input and say on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Height. Councillor Brunton.
Well, certainly sympathize with Councillor Height, but my recollection is that we're going to get the EA report from the consultant. My question is through to Lee. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to council, the way the resolution is currently worded in the minutes, staff will be bringing back a report with options how council can go about implementing the not preferred solution, which will involve the Class A. It will give council the different options that you can do to proceed, so the council can make an informed decision with respect to that. We will be providing as part of that report excerpts from the class environmental assessment. It's a huge file that we wouldn't normally attach to a report. Should council wish to see it, we're happy to circulate it to members of council, but not as part of the staff report, because it's just going to make an inordinate report that doesn't need to be, we don't need to spend that kind of investment in that, but we can certainly make it available. But the report that staff are bringing forward will have the options for council to consider. Council does not have the ability to alter anything within the Class EA. That's a provincially mandated process that we have to follow, and the report is what the report is, and there's no opportunity to change that. Council's opportunity is to choose not to implement it and direct staff to do something else, and that's what we'll articulate in the report next week, is how council goes about not implementing that preferred solution.
Okay, but I think whatever part we get is, I understand Valley Engineering did the EA, correct?
Valley Engineering did the class environmental assessment. We have not undertaken a full-blown EA because it's not required for this.
Okay, but we will get parts of that report and his background as to why that bridge was to be removed or not rebuilt?
Absolutely, that will be, the conclusion portion of the Class EA will be provided to council.
That will give us the details.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question as well for Ms. Robinson-Lee. If this motion is passed, as long as I've been a councillor and we've dealt with these old bridges that either had to be replaced or repaired or removed, I've been very anxious for us to consider a prefab steel bridge as an option in certain circumstances. And could I have your assurance that if this motion passes, that one of the things that staff will investigate is the cost and feasibility of a prefab structural steel bridge, such as we always see in the literature from the various industries? I mean, I think it could work. They are attractive. It wouldn't be a pony truss bridge, heritage authentic perhaps, but nonetheless would be a unique bridge, whether it's 1 lane or 2 lane or whatever. The span is not large, so that's my simple question. Can we have assurance that staff would look at that as an option?
Through the mayor to councillor, certainly staff can certainly look at that as an option, so that council is aware. We are going to be implementing one of those as a pedestrian bridge here in Simcoe, hopefully in the next year. But no, I just wanted to be aware, it was something that we considered for the other bridges that we needed from a pedestrian point of view, and we'll certainly do it as well for these bridges. We'll do some cost comparisons to see which ones make sense, to run it as a pilot project to see how it does.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion? Councillor Height, my interpretation of your motion is, if this passes, this would give staff direction to bring back a report for us to further consider our options. This is not a motion to say we are going to repair it, we are going to replace it, we are going to remove it. This is just to pursue further information with the possibility of keeping it open, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion on this? Councillor Sonnenberg, please.
Thank you. I find it hard to accept that a bridge can be in existence for 100 years and the people have become accustomed to using it. Then all of a sudden it just closes up and it's no longer available. I don't think that's right. People have become, accustomed to living their lives around that bridge being open. And we've got to do our utmost to see if we can't keep these old bridges open. So I'm certainly going to favor looking into this. Thank you.
Anything further? If not, those in favor of this motion? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? That is carried. I'm going to move to item 8. These are the adoption and correction of our council meeting minutes. We have a few here to catch up on. I'm on page 21. Are you treating these as correspondence?
No, it's just a verbal to approve.
Pardon?
It's just a verbal, so if there's anybody.
Okay, I got it. All right. I'll be okay, thank you. Listed in item A is the regular council meeting minutes from back in October the 10th, and these are behind a bit because we ran out of time at the previous council meeting. They're listed on page 21. 8B is our capital budget council meeting minutes from October the 18th and 19th. Again, that one was deferred for approval. 8C is our regular council meeting minutes from October the 24th. 2017. One, the closed session minutes were distributed under separate cover, and last is the special council meeting minutes, October the 31st. The closed session minutes were also from that meeting distributed under separate cover. Any one of those items you wish to go to and discuss anything in particular? Hearing none, I'm going to declare those minutes adopted as they are printed. There are some communications under item item 9 of our agenda, communications. The first one is concerning the Roma conference later in January of next year. Item B is a communication from Wesley Wilson concerning the Eva Brooke Donnelly Museum and the Archives petition. And item C is from the Honorable Dr. Eric Hoskins, and that is some information concerning Land Ambulance Services Grant. It's been moved by Wells and seconded by Brunton that these three correspondent items A through C be received as information. Any part of those you wish to discuss? I have Oliver and Columbus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question relates to the letter from the minister on page 63 of the agenda, so I'll be directing this probably to Mr. Cridlin, I think. One thing, I mean, I'm thrilled that we got this additional money, but the reference that caught my attention in particular in that first paragraph is that the additional funding is for the 50-50 partnership and the provision of land services to First Nation communities. I gather that must just have been a generic paragraph letter, or do we provide ambulance services to First Nations communities outside of our county?
Through the chair, I'm a little slow. I'm just catching up reading this as you are. I'm not sure if I defer this to the county manager, if he has more information. I haven't talked to Chief Townsend about this. I'm just unsure myself.
Yes.
If I may, I believe it's a combination of the two. Obviously, we have no First Nations territory within the landmass we refer to as Norfolk County. That being said, we have mutual aid provisions with our neighbors, and our neighbors do have First Nations territories, and if one of our ambulances is closer, it will respond to a call. So services provided, although not as a default planned for.
Thank you. Councillor Columbus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is with respect to the same letter by the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, Dr. Hoskins' letter. The $89,472 bill, is that money that was expected, or was it not expected? Or is it listed in the budget somewhere?
Through the chair, I believe it were funds that were expected.
They were expected, okay. Thank you.
Anything further? Those three communication items be received as information. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Going to go on to reports of committees. I'm on page 65, moved by Wells, seconded by Brunton, that the minutes of the Port Dover Harbor Museum Advisory Committee minutes be received as information. Item A, page 65, anything you wish to address in these minutes? Not, those in favor? Carried, thank you. The Health and Social Services Advisory Committee minutes are on page 69, moved by Wells, seconded by Brunton. That the minutes of the Health and Social Services Advisory Committee minutes, September the 21st, 2017, be received as information. Anything to report there? Hearing none, those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Page 77, moved by Councillor Brunton, seconded by Councillor Oliver, that the minutes of the Telecommunications Advisory Committee meeting of May the 1st, 2017 be received as information. Anything there? Councillor Wells, please.
Just for clarification, the statement on page 78, Chair Brown reintroduced the discussion on the town of Tillsonburg providing an interest-free loan of $300,000. So that, could I have an explanation what that is about, Mr. Mayor, please?
I don't.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I was not in attendance at that meeting, but we can find out and email out to council members.
Mr. Height, do you recall the conversation at that meeting concerning the item that has been brought up by Councillor Wells, the $300,000 interest-free loan? Do you recall that or not? Mr. Wells, sorry, Councillor Wells, could we look in and get a response? Could you make note of that, please, and we'll get a response to you. Good question. Councillor Columbus.
Thank you, Your Worship. I noted an item on page 83 of our agenda package. Right at the top there,
I'm not there yet, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry, there's two back-to-back, my
Okay.
apologies. Okay, we'll get to you just in a moment. Anything else on page 77 to 80? You've heard the motion, receive as information. Those in favor? Carried, thank you. On to page 81. Moved by Brunton, seconded by Oliver, that the minutes of the Telecommunications Advisory Committee meeting of September the 25th, 2017 be received as information. Councillor Columbus, please. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
It's second paragraph from the top on page 83. Discussion occurred on the amount of tracking of fiber being placed in our ditches. Staff indicated that the reality is that often services are placed in the ground prior to notifying the municipality. So I just would like to ask Lee about how common this is and whether there's a possibility that a map could be put together showing where all fiber is laid in our county. And then I know that I see people laying fiber down the Turkey Point Road, I believe, and
Yes, Green's Corners.
it seems like they just go ahead and start digging, and I just wonder if you can comment on that.
Sure. Through the mayor to council, with respect to utilities' ability to use our right-of-way, we have agreements in place with the majority of the utilities, and that dictates what they can and cannot do. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't notify us of work. All of that being said, we do not track every private utility that's located. So if we've given permission for somebody to install fiber, we don't have a layer on our GIS for where somebody else's material is located in our right-of-way. That's the purpose for the one-call system that the province implemented, is that everybody is required to locate their own infrastructure in our right-of-way. So we don't have a map of private infrastructure that's located on county property, because that's their responsibility to do that.